You can go.
I think at this point, maybe I should just go into security, since we've talked so much about.
We
could come back to the election issues. Mr. President, just one question I want to ask: the Chibok girls. What exactly is the state of things? How far?
The case of the Chibok girls, I believe now that we are working with Chad, working with Cameroon, I believe in the next few weeks, the story of the Chibok girls will begin to get better. The issues of at least rescuing some of them and so on. I believe that I cannot say, I cannot say the president said so. I don't want to be quoted and say maybe if I give you presidency in 2 weeks' time or in 4 weeks' time, we are going to. I cannot say that because the disappearance of these girls are taking quite some time. But we have mapped out a configuration now. We're working with our neighbors and we'll comb the whole of that area. So I believe, just give us some time.
Well, the one issue though that bothers me as a mother and as a woman, of course, was one of the issues that those campaigning for the girls to be found is the fact that how could the president have gone partying when it was first announced that they had been kidnapped? So like I always say, nobody knows what's in your heart. Maybe this is the opportunity to tell us how you actually felt.
I did not go partying. I think some people try to misinform the world. People try to play politics with the case of Chibok girls, which is very, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. And that is the difference between the security challenges we face, the terror challenges in Nigeria and other countries. Most other countries, when you have this issue of terror, Kenya is just started experiencing it. Uganda, they've experienced terror. Ethiopia, they've experienced the terror attack. Of course, U.S. experienced terror. We are talking about France experienced terror not long ago. We talk about ISIS and so on. Other countries, when they have this issue of terror, the political boundaries collapse and people work together. The interests of the country become paramount. But in this case, we have terror situation. Then Nigerians will feel it's better to go to the US, or go to UK, go to France, to appear on televisions and celebrate themselves. Is that the way we'll bring back these girls?
What do you
so you see, I think we are not, let us face facts. We imitate, Nigerians imitate America a lot. When there was a 9/11 in America, how many Americans moved about the whole world attacking the government? It was a collective responsibility. Defend America. You must be patriotic to your country. Is it by going to carry flags and singing around the world that will bring these girls? We'll expect that those who have international connections will use that one to help the country, not the other way around. But rather, you see that those people who some have some links outside, rather use those links negatively instead of using them positively for political reasons. So you see, just give us some time, because the position we are in now, I believe, the story will be better in the few weeks to come.
Yes, for these Chibok girls, is there really a definite plan to recover them alive as the military are moving in now?
Alive, but sooner.
Of course, we will recover them alive. There's no plan to kill them. How can you ask that question, my brother? These girls have been in the hands of criminals for a very long time. Some even on their own will be sick. Could suffer from snake bites because they've been moving them across the jungle. Even those who kidnap people, a number of them die in the process. Not because they wanted to kill the people. Those who kidnap for purpose of making money for ransom, but some of them die in their hands. That's been happening. So about 200 girls were kidnapped over a long period. You want the president to say, I'm going to get 200 girls alive and give the parents. What I'm telling you is that watch for because of the position now, and I'm quite hopeful. I'm not God, but as the president now, I'm more hopeful now than before. In terms of, yes, in terms of combing up the whole area because of what we have now and the maximum cooperation we are getting from the neighboring countries, which was never there before.
You still haven't told me how you feel about it.
I believe you didn't. If you have watched me, you would have noticed. There's no human being. And I used to tell people that the number of calls that I receive about this, you need to even appreciate that when I see people, I still have to relate with people as the president. The country cannot collapse. Myself and every other person around me feel tortured, and because you don't know the problem of terror on the head of the president of the country. That's why I know, like when some people say that, oh, in some parts of some of the states, they are even insinuating that the president brought Boko Haram for political gains. And I just can't even imagine somebody insinuating that. So that if the person knows 1/4 of the problems I carry because of this Boko Haram, he will not even
They will feel sorry for you.
Make that kind of a statement. But these are painful things. These are painful things that we have to pass through.
There's one particular painful thing that Ibangase must address with you.
Yes,
and we all agree that he should be the one that will ask that question.
Yes, Mr. President, in a similar event like this in the past, you remarked that stealing is not corruption. And this issue has generated a lot of controversy. Nigerians are worried. The social media, it becomes something that people talk about and they insult you about. Now, Mr. President, please, can you tell us, clarify what you meant by those statements?
My brother, thank you for asking. I think I had one or two persons, very senior persons, politicians, who made that allegation. Oh, the president that says stealing is not corruption. But the good thing is that those who are making that statement, they have not told you that the president says stealing is good. How I wish they tell Nigerians that I said stealing is good. But the president says stealing is not corruption. Luckily, they did not say the president said stealing is good. And you see, that is why the philosophers said that people disagree, because the primary reason for disagreement is that people use the same word to explain two different things, or use two different words to explain the same thing, so you get a communication gap. I made that statement because I quoted the former CGN, Mustafa. Because of these issues of corruption, I called a meeting. It's a creation of me, the executive, myself, the vice president, and the anti-graft agencies, ICPC, FCC, and the police. Then I asked the Senate President and the Deputy, the Speaker and the Deputy, then the Chief Justice of the Federation, the President of the Appeal Court, the Chief Justice of the Federal High Court, and for the state courts, we take one Chief Justice per zone, 6 of them. So look, both, though there is in the Constitution, there is no provision for the 3 arms of government to come together because of this separation of powers. But I say, look, the issue of corruption, if the 3 arms of government don't come together to tackle this corruption, the whole country is being humiliated. Everywhere you go, corruption, corruption, corruption. When the Chief Judge turned to speak, that was Justice Mustafa, he said that because of this corruption, he took most of the files that talked about corruption. And when he looked through the files, more than 80% of them are just stealing. They are cases of theft. But people use corruption to cover. What I'm saying is that if, for example, let's go to the Southwest and go to a typical community in the Southwest, and I look at you and say, this young man is corrupt. They will be looking at the young man. So he's corrupt. They will look at him. But call that young man Ole and see what will happen to that young man. Call him Ole, that's thief. They would stone him to death. Our people hate thieves more than they hate corrupt. Now I've been saying that sometimes we use corruption to cover lapses of government functionaries. Somebody who cannot do his work well, they say it's because of corruption. A thief should be called a thief. Ole should be called Ole and be treated as a thief. In the villages in those days when we are there, even if you're an adult and you steal goat or you steal a bunch of plantain or something, they naked you, they tie snail shells around your waist and flog you across the village, humiliate you and your family. But if you say this man is corrupt, some people don't even know what you're talking about. apart from well-developed languages like the Hausa language, the Yoruba language, and the Igbo language, some of the smaller languages we speak don't even have the equivalent word for corruption. Ask people.
Semantics then.
Yes, if you ask some of the smaller languages, what is the equivalent of corruption, they will be giving you some descriptive statements. Because people don't even know this corruption. I said that you are even using the corruption to cover thieves. A thief should be called a thief. Ole should be called Ole and be given that Ole treatment. But I don't know what happened. People turn it upside down. Luckily, they have not told Nigerians that the president says it's good to steal. I have not said so. But we are saying that if somebody is a thief, it should be a thief. Don't use the word corruption to cover everything. Somebody who is incompetent, they say corruption. Somebody, if you thief, Ole is Ole and should be treated as Ole. I'm not saying people should
be disgraced.
Yes, I'm not saying people should be treated like it's done in the village. No, I'm not saying so. But the punishment for that, we should deal with that matter that way. But well, maybe in the West, they use the word corruption to cover so many things, and sometimes people corruption. I'm telling you, just for example, two people should go to a typical site where, even in Lagos, one young man or young lady should come and say this person is corrupt. The people will look at the person will walk away. But the day you say that this person is holy, or it will start studying that person. So people feel more offended when they say you are a thief.
So let's use words that communicate the message.
Yes, so let us communicate properly. Let people know. That is, I quoted him. It's not me. It's not as if I said it. No, I quoted Mustafa. He's still alive. He's the one who said he examined all these corruption cases, and he said almost 80% of them are cases of just stealing and should be treated as, yes.
Okay. It's not that stealing is corruption. Yes. Stealing
is bad. Let me say corruption, for example, in a society based on our own values. Two unmarried men sleeping is corruption. But can you compare that to stealing? So the word corruption, we have abused it, and it's no longer making so much sense. Except maybe talk about your country's corruption. But I think quoting Mustafa, I'm not the one. And even that day when I made that statement, I quoted Mustafa. I did not say stealing is not corruption. I said, but Mustafa, as a lawyer, was the Chief Justice of the country. He said he studied, took time because of this corruption. Because I invited all of them for that meeting. So he decided to withdraw most of these cases about corruption, and he studied the cases, and he said that more than 70%, either they use the word 80 or 70, but I believe more than more than 70 or more than 80% are clear cases of stealing, and so they should be treated that way, not to be covered up under corruption. Even if you look at the two agencies we have the ICPC. ICPC is actually the only agency that is set to deal with corruption. Independent Corrupt Practices Commission. ICPC is the only agency that is set out to deal with pure corrupt practices. It's not even EFCC. EFCC is criminal cases bordering on economic issues. And the police will handle cases of stealing. You see, so when you try to cover everything, that means that ICPC is supposed to handle all these files, because that is the only agency set up by government that's supposed to deal with pure corruption issues. So I think people are confused. It's not actually my quotation. It's not actually my quotation. I quoted the Chief Justice of the Federation that time, but it is being used wrongly. But luckily, nobody has said, "Oh, the president said that stealing is good." There's no human being that will say stealing is good, because our people know a thief is somebody you don't want to come near you.
So are we identifying thieves in our society now? Of
course, yeah. Even if you talk about what the agencies are doing, within this period, I said so. And I said that it's better the chairman of EFCC himself should address the media. In terms of prosecuting people and convicting people, we have done more conviction within this period than before. But I always say that even if you convict 1 million people, it does not stop this stealing corrupt practices.
What do you think will stop?
You must make sure that people don't steal. Don't put the money where people will steal, like we've done in the fertilizer procurement. If you leave a goat and a yam or a plantain together, the goat will eat. What you have to do, if you want to make sure that the goat does not eat the yam, We must separate it. So that's what we are doing, that we must make sure that, luckily we have IT, you are all digital people. With IT, you can do a number of things. That's why we removed the stealing that was taking place in the, I don't even want to say corruption, the stealing that was taking place in the fertilizer sector. Every year, the states and the federal governments spend a lot of money, and this people just
doesn't get to where it should.
Yes, they stole the money. Thieves should be called thieves. My brother.
So
thieves should be called thieves. And if you go to my village and talk about thieves, everybody, even the 90%, know who is a thief. When you say corruption, the man will look at you, does not know what you're talking about.
Anyway, Deji, you want to
for me, I would want to go back to the issue of security, if you wouldn't mind. Mr. President, just the $1 billion loan you actually asked the National Assembly to approve to purchase equipment. What exactly is the state of that? And, sorry, it's a double-barrel question. The second would be, what exactly is the state of things with the problem we had with South Africa over the $9.3 million issue?
The $1 billion loan, because it's a loan, it had to go to the National Assembly. I think the House of Rep gave the approval quite late. But we have not even, because it's a loan, so we have to draw. We have not even started drawing from that money. But the National Assembly have approved the $1 billion loan. But we started drawing. We'll be managing, and we also want to pay directly to countries. We don't want, because of this stealing of money, you call corruption or stealing. Well, thief is a thief. It's just use the word corruption to paint things that black and look like not too black. What we are doing now this time is for military procurement. We do what we call government to government. Most the companies that produce weapons have links with their state government, the countries, because you cannot be allowed to produce. They are not granite. So we are now arranging through the countries, and that money nobody will see. Everything will be from central bank straight to those countries. We've not started disbursing it. The issue of the $9.3 million or so, actually that money is technically, yes, the money came from us, but technically it's not our money. It was paid to a company. But the only thing is that because of the circumstances of the transaction and the way the company ferried the money across to South Africa, it became an issue. And of course the matter is in court. I believe they will get the money back, but the matter is in court.
South Africa has not returned the money.
No, the matter is in court, so until the court process is concluded. It's not as if the government is no longer directly in the
because
hands
government
of the
paid
government. Yes.
this company.
Yes, it pays the company. It's the company that carried the money to South Africa.
But the company has not delivered the weapons anyway.
Exactly.
So. No, they have. Yeah, it's a contract. So it is not our fault. But it's just, of course, we suffer some kind of bad image when $9.something million, and the media, because especially in the political period where people paint all kinds of colors, but technically it's not our money, and because the matter is in court, so the money is there. So the company, because it's obligation, so they have to do their best to give us what we want.
Ibrahim has been eating.
Yes, I want to ask a question related to this one.
Which one? 9.3?
Yeah. If we remember, one of the reasons why the transaction had to go like that was that the American government was not willing to cooperate with Nigeria on the issue of purchase of arms from American companies, either in America or in Europe. Now, Mr. President, you have mentioned earlier on this night that Nigeria has procured the right arms to fight this insurgency. So I wonder if you have mended fences with the US government and you were able to purchase arms from American companies.
In terms of weapons, in a nation like Nigeria, you can never get enough. I say we have gotten reasonable that can enable us to combat them. I'm not saying we've gotten all what we would have loved to get. You just asked me about the $1 billion. As I said, yes, the National Assembly have approved, we have not drawn. But in terms of, the issues of the American companies is they felt that there are elements of human rights abuses in Nigeria by our soldiers. That is the insinuation that has been there. And that if they sell the weapons, it could be used, and because of that, they are restraining. But we are getting different companies, different countries that also produce some different calibers of weapons. Maybe if you want to buy this glass from the America and you cannot get exactly this glass, you may get a similar one. May not be as good as this, but it could help you do your work. But I don't need to come and enumerate the countries that are helping us and so. But we have gotten some equipment from other sources that, at least for now, we can move faster than we've been moving. And watch out for the next 3 weeks.
Ibanga?
All right, Mr. President, there are insinuations outside there, and it's so right. And some of them, some people said that your supporters, very big ones at that, have said if you lose the election or the other party wins, you will not hand over. And especially at the social media level, and they express so much concern that you don't want to relinquish power. You will not if the election does not come your way. Can you explain this?
If in 2011 I said that I will conduct free and fair elections, and if I lose, I'll happily go home, and it should be recorded as at that time no African sitting presidents have lost election. But within this period, the number of African sitting presidents have been lost election. But I said I wanted to create the history to be the first African president that will lose election, but let the world know that the elections are free and fair. Then I just concluded the late president's tenure. I was just a president for about a year, acting for some months then. But I said that I would be happy to go home. That this nation is more important than any human being, and I still maintain it. Anybody who wants to hold this office of a president or any office at all and feel that he's more important than the nation, then that is not quite right. So if as at that time I said that I was ready to conduct free and fair election, and if I lose, I'll go. We're not to talk about now that at least Nigerians gave me the opportunity to be here for 4 full years. So if the elections are conducted and I lose, of course, they will inaugurate a new government. There's no way you say, okay, if I lose, I will not hand over to. No. I think unnecessary insinuation. Those are the things that make you a cab driver to be a bit.
My cab driver, my staff, my children. I ask all kinds of people to ask questions. Anything they want to find out from Mr. President.
Those are insinuations that it's quite unfortunate. There's a lot of wrong information that is floating in the system, especially in the social media, even in the normal media, both television, radio, and even the print media. What you read in the papers, sometimes you feel sad.
Well, you are with us now, so we can clear a lot of things. So it's an opportunity to do that. So we're glad the Nigerians are hearing from your mouth, a thief is a thief.
Yes, a thief is a thief. Don't paint it with corruption. If you go to my village and say this person is corrupt, they will just be looking at you. They don't know. They will not know what you're talking about.
And we're going to face.
But if you say this person is a thief, everybody, the smaller child, the oldest person, will know what you're talking about. And so let's call thieves.
May 29 is sacrosanct?
Of course.
But I wonder,
that severally.
The elections, the rallies, you just conducted, you just rounded up your rallies. So what are you going to be doing from now till?
Not quite. We are yet to go to Yobe, and we are yet to do the Abuja rally.
Only two?
Because, yes. In fact, somehow, the key political parties, I think APC too, because the last day I had a conversation with General Buhari, the day we had the Council of State meeting. He said that they are also yet to do Yobe, Borno. And of course, all of us
for obvious reasons?
Not obvious reason. We were to go to Yobe on Saturday, but then we had to do the Council of State meeting and these issues had to come up. So we felt, let us hold on, because depending on the security issues, if elections are adjusted, then of course it's better to do the remaining one, maybe closer to the election. But elections are not all about open rallies. Open rallies are more like ceremonies, but a number of other all the political key actors are going around, go to different programs, meet some individuals, and so on. So those conversations are going on. You don't necessarily need to do open rallies, but you must be reaching out to people. All politicians do that. So that's what we'll be doing. I believe close to the elections, you see that people may do some few rallies.
Who are you reaching out to the most?
People like you.
Women or?
Women and youths. Because you control more than 80% of the voting population, the young people and the women.
So,
well, it would appear I love security, and I'm
going back.
I'm going back to security.
Security is key because without security, I'm happy you love security.
No, I think
without security, you can't do election.
No.
Let's talk about the Boko Haram, the ceasefire that did not actually happen, that we had some time ago. What exactly happened? Were we swindled? Was the government swindled?
No, the government was not swindled in any way. When you talk about swindling, it's like you give money to people and they disappeared. No, there was nothing like swindling. I know from the beginning of the Boko Haram, in my interviews, people say, oh, engage the Boko Haram. I say, yes, we are ready to engage people, but they are faceless. During the Niger Delta crisis, some of these Niger Delta key leaders, I met them in State House here when Obasanjo was the president. Then I was the deputy governor, later became a governor. A number of them, it was in Abuja, in the State House that I met them. The first day when I called the meeting, and some of them, when they introduced themselves, I was just looking at them. I was a deputy governor in Niger Delta, I didn't know them. What I'm saying is that when the president then invite them, they come because they are known characters. They have a reason to do whatever, whether rightly or wrongly, they had a reason. And when they invite them, they appear. For the Boko Haram, no, they will not appear. I visited as a vice president. I visited one of the strongest militant camps in Delta. When I arrived Warri, of course, as a vice president, I moved with security. They send words across to me that I should not come to their camp with weapons or with security. The security people say I should go back, I should not go. I say I will go. The people who follow me, none of them carry even a revolver. When we go to the camp, there are all kinds of weapons. They were carrying assault rifles and all kinds of things. We had a discussion. But you can't do that for Boko Haram because they are faceless and their approach is different.
They are still faceless till today?
So even that time, I set up a committee headed by the current Minister of Special Duties and said, yes, if we have any window for discussion, let's discuss. Because the interest of the country is paramount. Sometimes the West will say, no, people should not negotiate with terrorists. Yes, we don't have to negotiate with terrorists. But then, if there is any way we can solve this problem, it's better, because whoever dies, whether it's a Boko Haram person that dies or a civilian or a security personnel, it's a Nigerian, and I feel the pains. I get security information on an hourly basis. So anything that will end it is something that I'm interested in. So what happened then was that we had a window through the Chadian system. It's not as if we just woke up to discuss with Boko Haram. And actually some people came for those conversations with my people. But it's like the Boko Haram, they are factionalized in a way, just like when you talk about the Niger Delta militants. Now there's no one umbrella body. Luckily you call them general. Every general has his own army. So Boko Haram have similar operations. So at a time, it did not get the blessing of all of them. So of course it failed. But it's not as if anybody was swindled. No, federal government was not swindled. Well, they didn't give money to anybody.
I don't think it would be nice for us to come here with you and not ask you, what's the one thing you've learned in this first term? Because technically this is your first term.
Yeah.
If indeed, let's play the devil's advocate, you win and you become the next president and sworn in May 29, what would you do differently?
If you talk about differently, yes, of course. If you stay somewhere, you may begin to adjust the way you do certain things. Because I've realized that in society, what people assess you more is not the real things you do, but how you get those things done. Probably because the common story people say is that, oh, the president meant well for this country. Yes, I meant well for this country. Anybody who's close to me, and I'm passionate about Nigeria. But they say, oh, people around the president do, people around the president do. So of course, you must be very watchful about the actions and inactions of people around you, so that they don't continue to drag the reputation of the government into into jeopardy, wrongly or rightly. It's not as if some of them have done anything wrong, but the perception is worse than real. Sometimes you who is sitting there know the exact thing, but if the perception is different, you have issues. I'm just telling you about a university professor who said he came to my house. That man has never visited State House. Even if he has come here for a general program in banquet hall, I may not know. But coming to my residence, I'm not sure he has even visited my residence. Who told Nigerians that they gave him one full turkey in a house that they don't even serve turkey?
So manage perception
and if he pushes that
saying?
story, yes, of course, we'll manage the perception better. And if you strengthen that sector, the image of government will improve. Because most of the problems we're having is the perception, not real. Because if you talk about concrete things that this government have done, we can challenge any group within these 4, or even if you put 5 years, and let's even add the 1 year using completing your address 10 and 5 years. If you take, let me go to I'm not even things that are not too tangible. If you look at the body called the PTDF, Petroleum Technology Development Fund, it's used for technical training. From the monies have been given to that institution. The number of youths we have trained within these 5 years for technical training at sub-graduate level, at the graduate level, masters and PhD, including pilots and so on. The number of people we have trained from that institution within these 5 years is more than the number of youths they have trained from inception of that institution. What were they doing with the money?
Perception. You do it differently. Maybe I let my colleagues ask one question each. Because I mean, I come from a home where my husband shares the same views. If only people knew how fantastic views underneath. So. I don't know. But what about you?
Okay, Mr. President, you mentioned that you had a chat with your main challenger, that's General Buhari, during the last Council of State meeting. There has been a lot of mudslinging in this campaign. A lot of things are being pushed out, especially about him. Can you tell us your own personal assessment of that man? What do you think about Buhari?
No. If I should assess Buhari under the condition where 2 of us are contesting for one position, I don't think I will be fair to Nigerians, and I'll be fair to myself. It's not proper. You are not being fair to me to ask me that question. If we talk about mudslinging, I think it's worse. I think the garbage that is poured on me is much more than the ones. Not pure what I'm talking about. Because people come to me and say, President, in the social media, they've done this, they have done that, they have done that. I say, well, that is the cross we have to carry. Because I said that's the cross a leader will carry. I know certain things that happen and the kind of effect on me, a number of people don't know, but I have to carry it wrongly or rightly. So, but if you talk about Buhari, I don't, social media, I don't, in fact, I don't even have the time no, definitely if you are sitting where I'm sitting, you don't really have the time. So I may not know much about what is happening. But in my opening statement, I told you that some of the things I observe, I feel sad. I feel sad.
Personally?
And I say, yes, and I say that it's not the way to go. And I said that, look, Buhari contested 2003 against Obasanjo. Contested 2007 against late Yar'Adua, which I ran as his running mate. Contested against me 2011, but even 2011 it was the closest. The environment was different. These issues we are describing as the mudslinging statements that we're supposed to make were not there. But so I said that the characters around us
have changed.
Have changed, and that is changing the principles. And I remember when, of course, APC started their campaign before me. I think they visited almost 4 states before PDP started. And I watched some of the rallies. And if you listen to me, the way I spoke in Lagos, I was a bit aggressive. Yeah, because the kind of statements that people made, it was not proper.
Can we just summarize that as sign of the times? You know, tension is high and mudslinging is going on, but it doesn't change the fact that we have the opportunity to clear some of these issues. So, Mr. President, you forgive us for asking such questions, but we have to ask them. They are hard. Yeah, we must ask them.
We just have
1 minute each on both sides, so Mr. President can round up, so we can.
final question then
Yes,
would be,
final question.
I would want you to respond to the issue of campaign financing. I mean, we've seen a lot of money spent on the campaign trail. I mean, we've heard from what we have seen, it's not as if, and because political parties do not disclose how much they spend. Your party, for instance, raised 21 billion naira. Are you bothered at the amount of money that we spend in our campaigns, and would you want to do something to correct that situation?
In terms of amount of money being spent, it's been regulated by INEC laws, but the pressure on anybody contesting election, either a councillor at the local government level or a chairman of a council, state assembly, up to the president, the pressure is quite high.
Pressure from where, sir?
You know, the pressure from the people, because I've been in politics from 1998-99, and I ran as a deputy governor today. So there's always so much pressure on people who want to. Those are the things that worry us, that if there will be less pressure, not most of this has nothing to do with even the formal elections. But if you talk about my party raising money, the PDP has been raising money. That money that PDP launched was mainly to build their secretariat. That, you know, we have a secretariat we've been building. It has been hanging. It was not money for election. No, it was not for election. And what you mentioned as 21 billion, those are pledges. Did you see the cash?
Okay. So, Ibarra?
Yes, my final question, Mr. President. Do you have confidence that INEC, as presently constituted, will conduct free, fair and credible elections for this country?
I told you that I appointed everybody in INEC, the chairman of INEC, I appointed in the national commissioners and the resident electoral commissioners. I appointed them and they will do the work.
Sir, I would like to round up this now, sincerely. I would have liked to spend 3 hours with you, but you've communicated quite clearly to us that the nation is more important than even the current sitting president.
Yes, of course.
Very particular about what, and it's appealing to everybody on what sides. Although I wonder about the fact that there's only 2 parties we hear. There are many other parties. So, but I would like you to give us closing statements. You know, let Nigerians hear from you what your closing thoughts are.
Let me reassure Nigerians that elections will be conducted in this country and the government will be inaugurated on the 29th of May this year. And let them not be perturbed by stories that are not real. Oh, Mr. President want to send INEC chairman on 3 months terminal leave and bring somebody that will manipulate elections for him. These are stupid things that people insinuate. Those stories, it belongs to the garbage world. I think those of you who use computers, there's this language like garbage in, garbage out. If you put rubbish into the computer, it will send rubbish to people. And the stories people read, get not less than 20% of it, especially in the social media, less than 20% of it that you can really say that this is a credible story. Even if there is some credibility, it's overpainted. The colors they give distort the whole story. And when a story is distorted, the information that story communicates is always wrong. But let me reassure Nigerians that we'll conduct elections. It's better for INEC to conduct elections that we all believe that is free and fair. It's quite regrettable that they have to reschedule elections. For us who are politicians, it's more painful because that means more tension, more this, more that, more sleepless nights and meetings, endless meetings. But even with that, it's better that elections are done in a way that Nigerians will at least believe that the elections are credible. If you, for example, I mentioned that in some states, Lagos State, Ogun State, as at that time, had less than 40% PVCs that were distributed. Less than 40%, both Lagos and Ogun State. Some states about 50. The tallies I'm hearing now have improved. So it's only proper that Nigerians be given the opportunity to vote. And especially we are coming from a culture where people don't used to care about how people get into offices, where people manipulate electoral processes. I can ask, if I ask any of you whether you voted 2007 and 2003, I'm not sure any of you voted.
Are you sure we vote now?
But you voted 2011. And so let us, if we are coming from a culture where people don't even vote and all kinds of things happen, to a culture where we want every Nigerian, I want a situation where every Nigerian must vote. That is my commitment. But it may be difficult. INEC may have some logistic challenges. But at least, even if they cannot distribute the PVCs 100%, the percentage should be fairly high so that Nigerians will believe in the process.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for watching. I think we can quote you on this, that Nigeria, there will be sworn in as, somebody will be sworn in as president on May 29, 2014. A president, government. May 29, 2015. And this nation is more important than anybody else, Mr. President has told us today. So I suppose the least Nigerians can do is to at least go out there and pick up their PVCs. And on this note, I must thank my colleagues, Ibrahim, Deji, Ibanga, for joining me in talking with Mr. President today. And Your Excellency, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.